Hello, thanks for joining me today. My name is Jonah Clement, and today, for Wednesday's video, we're actually going to be diving into some current events. I'm actually going to be doing a series moving forward. Every Wednesday we'll be discussing different worldly events through the lens of spirituality and kind of how the universe brings balance back to the world. So we're just going to dive right in. I actually wanted to today specifically talk about political scandals. So we're going to be discussing the Biden documents a little bit in detail and kind of the concept of declassified documents and the implications of what that means, and then also kind of viewing it specifically from a spiritual lens. So just to kick it off, I wanted to start with basically saying that the truth always comes to light. So light and darkness define each other, and without darkness you can't have light, and without light you can't have darkness. And when there's too much darkness in the world, light eventually will be brought in to basically shine truth on what's happening through transparency, even if the people that are basically hiding, in shame or whatever, don't want that to come to light. So it's interesting. The main reason I'm talking about this is Pence actually just found a bunch of, I think it was 2 boxes of documents in one of his homes. And I thought that was kind of ironic how Pence even had classified documents. And I remember, I think it was last year, they made this whole stink about the FBI raiding Trump's house and how he shouldn't have had those documents. And I'm not going to get into the semantics of it. Even though he technically was the former president, he had, in essence, every right to have those documents. He has the power to declassify things. But the irony is, specifically with Biden's case, he had declassified documents for years, apparently, and I don't know the exact metrics, but my understanding is he had classified documents since Obama was president, and that's 5 to 7 years ago. And as vice president, he had no authority or jurisdiction and holding any of those. And that begs to question kind of the hypocrisy of the really the world that we live in, to where the people that are in essence, shameful or can be shameful, or in my opinion, also they're hiding themselves, they're hiding the truth, and they use every power they can to hide the truth rather than coming forward and just owning the mistake. They'd rather I believe Biden's response is basically he said he did nothing wrong. In reality, he's not willing to admit his wrongdoing, which is really the first step towards the light and towards ultimately forgiveness. And not forgiveness from the people, but forgiveness from God and within himself. And I just find it interesting how basically the media, the world has treated Trump's, specifically his handling of the documents and his response, because he was basically responding like, you have no right to be doing what you're doing, because he did, in essence, do I agree with him having declassified documents? I think that whole process needs to be addressed on who can and can't have that, and that we're not going to get into that. I don't really care too much, and that's not my field of expertise. But I just find the irony of how we treated somebody that in essence did nothing wrong versus somebody that actually has done something wrong. And it's known because you can't declassify documents as the vice president. During his time in office, he had no right to hold those documents, and when he left office, he had definitely no right to hold those documents. So I want to actually move into kind of some other scandals throughout history that are kind of coming to light now. And the interesting part is about what I said earlier: the truth always gets revealed. The truth, it might not be instantly. It might not, be the next day or the next year. It might take 20, 30, 40, 50. It might be 100 years from now. It might be a civilization in the future that, figures out the actual truth of what's going on. But it always comes to light. That's the beauty of how the universe, in essence, brings balance to light and dark. Because once one side, and same thing with the light, if it gets too much into the light, it needs to bring balance back in, because that's the world we live in. It must be balanced really to move forward. When there's imbalance, that's when issues really arise, and that's when I talk about a little bit more related to us later. But next thing I really wanted to dive into is the CIA actually allegedly, a lot of documentation, a lot of stuff came out recently that they participated in the assassination of JFK. So it's kind of funny how for the longest time Lee Harvey Oswald was the main guy that they basically pinned it on, and now they're finding out that I don't know the exact I don't know exactly how they played a role or allegedly played a role in it. But, potentially they could have backed Oswald, but basically it was the deep state, or, whatever you want to call it, the cabal, the corruption, just basically the people that wanted to maintain this control and power over everyone's lives. In essence, wanted to get rid of JFK because he was basically going against the agenda of what these deeply, deeply corrupted ABC organizations are doing. And he ultimately ended up paying with his life for it. And that's really sad, and how we were basically sold this narrative. I remember learning about the assassination of JFK in school and talking about how Lee Harvey Oswald did it. And now it's like set almost 50 plus years later, learning that, oh my God, in essence, he had, if any, a minimal role in that. So it's very interesting how the truth always comes to light. It might not be instant, but it does come to light in some fashion or another. Another great example are the Tuskegee Airmen experiments. Those eventually came to light. You had the MK Ultra thing that the CIA was doing, eventually came to light. All these programs that the government's been running, and it's not just that. It transcends just the government. We recently, a couple of years ago, had the whole Epstein and Giselle Maxwell incident, basically, where there was a list of clientele that they were, in essence, peddling child slave labor and certain, how do I phrase this? Certain just illicit acts, and forcing these children and these young women into doing some very, very horrible things. And it's not in any fault the women's fault. It's just the circle of this corruption. It just runs deep. And there was a list of clients that actually existed, and it's pretty funny how that list hasn't actually been released to the public. It almost seems like there's no accountability for any of this other than those two. And that's sad, but like I said, be it a year from now, be it 10 years from now, that whole incident will play itself out. We will most likely eventually know everybody that participated in it. There's we have some initial inklings of who participated, because some of that stuff got publicated or published, but I do truly believe that everything will be brought back into balance, and these people will eventually be brought to justice. And maybe not us as people will bring them to justice, but they will answer to the justice of the universe and God, and that always happens. So that's the beauty of it. If we don't bring them to justice, there is a justice beyond that they have to answer to eventually, which is ultimately about infinitely worse than anything that we could do. So what I really wanted to talk about is how what I really wanted to dive into is how this actually affects us as a people, and kind of just life in general, and kind of why how the truth comes to light in your life. And the interesting part is we're learning all of these truths, and we're learning all of these facts that are coming out now, and all of these just scandals that are coming to light. And it's really up to us as a people to determine how we want to view it and how we want to perceive it. We could stay closing our eyes and, just be ignorant to it and not accept it, and just be like, oh, this can't be happening. Like, there's no way the government could be doing all this, corrupt, evil stuff. And reality is, once you can accept that that's happened, and that, you might have even participated in it by voting for people that perpetuate this stuff forward. I at one point, I was young and naive. I'm only 28, but I'm still young. But when I was much younger, I used to be naive and just didn't quite understand how the world worked, and the many cogs in the machine, and how voting and elections and things have consequences, and putting people in power that aren't qualified or deserve that power. And really, that's all they crave is power, has consequences. So ultimately, it's up to us to decide how we want to move forward as a society for the slights and the honestly the hypocrisy of what these self-proclaimed royals and elites have been doing. And the truth of the matter is, there ultimately is right now a two-tier justice system. There is the us. Or there's the them, and then there's the us. Us, we the people. I'm talking about basically everybody in the world that is not part of this elite order, this ultra wealthy, these power mongers. We answer to a traditional justice system, while you have these other folks, in essence, they don't answer to anything. The only thing they truly answer to is God. And the funny part is I truly believe that that bill will eventually come due, and I don't think they're really going to like what that bill is going to have. But right now, that needs to be addressed, because it's insanity that there is a two-tier justice system. If you reach a certain socioeconomic status, you are basically freed from all of the laws of what everybody else is held to. It's ironically kind of like a modern day feudal system. You have us, just the regular people that are in essence viewed as plebeians, or just almost slaves to these like self-proclaimed royals or nobles, or what you want to call it. And it's interesting how they don't even hold themselves accountable to things. The organizations that are supposed to hold and these offices accountable don't even do that, because they're part of the corruption. And moving away from that, I wanted to start discussing about the truth coming to light in your life, and how everybody makes mistakes. I'm not perfect. I've made I've done plenty of wrong in the past, and I still, make mistakes today. I'm not openly admitting I'm perfect. No one in existence on this planet is perfect. Because perfection is unachievable. Perfection, once you're perfect, there's always something more that you could be doing, so you're never truly perfect. But the thing is really about the truth coming to light is being able to admit your wrongdoing and asking for forgiveness, from yourself, and then eventually, when you're ready, to ask it from God. And I find it interesting, how different religions call for different things, like confessional and things like that. I don't believe in that, really. I don't think that you need to go and confess your sins to a priest, or I think that relationship of forgiveness and your relationship with God is between you and Him, or universe, or whatever name you call the Lord, if you don't even call the Lord, or if you have doubts if God exists, if you're agnostic, any of that. But I believe that asking for forgiveness is incredibly personal, but the first step is forgiving yourself, and before that, you need to admit that you've done wrong, and that you've made a mistake. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do for a lot of people, because a lot of us carry a lot of pride. A lot of us don't want to be wrong in things. And I know I'm like that at times, but I'm also willing to step away from that emotion of pride, and step away from that self, and admit to myself when I've made a mistake and when I need to improve or do better. And again, we've all done wrong. We've all made mistakes. We've all have regrets. I have plenty of regrets, but it's something that when you can accept them and forgive yourself for them and admit that they were wrong, you can move on and let it go. So I want to now move into why is this happening. Well, I mentioned it a little bit before. Balance is being kind of brought back into the world right now. The pendulum, in essence, has swung too far to one side. It's, in essence, swung too much into the darkness. And we've had these, in essence, these entities ruling and that have maintained power that ultimately, in my opinion, represent weakness and fear. And that's all they are, fear-mongers, and people that they feed off of the energy and fear of people. And that's how they maintain their powers. They create a narrative that the world is nigh, everything's burning down. And that's on all sides of the political spectrum, not just one, both sides. And I don't agree with that. I think that really we need to create hope amongst people. And the way to do that is by starting to hold these wrongdoings accountable, and the people that have done them accountable. It was actually interesting because, like I just said, the hypocrisy never really wins. It's something where the hypocrite, it's like basically, they do the thing that they proclaim somebody else is doing, even though they're doing it themselves, and that's really what's going on right now. And it's almost it's sad that it's tearing this country apart, but it's also, I find, a little bit comical, because you have these people now that are like basically almost view themselves as like the morally righteous side. And in essence, it's like you are doing the exact thing that you say that the other people are doing, because you're projecting your internalized state onto them. And this kind of brings me into the concept of, again, forgiveness, and that, you don't, I actually had a conversation with my dad about this, that you don't necessarily have to forgive a person's actions, but you can forgive the person. And it doesn't mean you have to accept what they did was wrong, right. You don't have to accept at all what they did. But ultimately, you can forgive the person, and them as a person. Again, you don't have to forgive their actions. People do wrong all the time, and these scandals that are coming out. We don't have to forgive we don't have to forgive Biden for him basically illegally possessing documents as former vice president and carrying that over or whatever. I'm in my opinion, I'm pretty sure it's illegal what he did. Same thing with Pence. We don't have to forgive him. We don't have to forgive Trump either. But we don't have to forgive their actions, but we can forgive the person. And that still means that they need help. That still means that when wrongdoing is done, that ultimately, yes, they should be held accountable in some sense of the word, and figure out what that justice looks like. Not revenge, justice, because revenge is trying to make yourself feel good. Justice is trying to bring balance back to the world. So basically, in closing, be it a year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, the truth will always win. That's just how the universe works. That's how balance works. When too much lying and cheating and stealing and all of this stuff goes on, the truth comes to light. Because the problem is when you keep lying and you keep cheating, eventually the lie and the cheating gets caught up and it can't keep moving forward, and it basically spins out of control. And eventually from that, in essence of the truth starts to shine through, and then the whole thing just unravels. And that's really what's happening right now, is that this corruption is unraveling because there's nothing else they can eat except themselves, and you can't survive off yourself by eating yourself. It just doesn't work like that. You can't keep on the corruption can't eat the corruption to keep moving forward, and the lie can't keep on building because it's become too heavy. So those are my thoughts on the kind of the political scandals, specifically around the documents going on. I'm going to be doing more of these videos every Wednesday, and we're going to just be addressing different world events that are going on from a spiritual lens, and I'm going to give my opinions and thoughts on them. But thanks for joining today. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate if you hit that like button. That actually helps the algorithm, and then helps this channel grow. If you're looking for more content like this, I would love and absolutely appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I'm just trying to get this message out there to as many people as possible. We talk about all sorts of things here at Jonah and the Whale. And then lastly, if you're looking for to be notified about future content that I post, just hit that notification bell. Other than that, have a fantastic day. Thanks for joining, and I will see you in the next video.